Hello everybody, welcome back to Umineko episode 1 part 13. The last time we left off, Eva accused Natsuhi of killing Kinzo, and things were heating up. Then we ended off with Battler's interjection into their conversation. Without further ado, let's just get right into it. Looks like everyone else has said their piece. Oh god.
ダメだな。全然ダメだぜ。
Battler's acting a little different too.
エヴァおばさん。
ダメって何がだよ、バトラー。
Jessica looked up at me, hanging onto my every word. Auntie Eva's expression was composed as always.
全然ダメって何が？バトラ君、聞かせてよ。
一方からしか見られないから、夏日おばさんしかありえないって思い込んじまうのさ。別に夏日おばさんを擁護するわけじゃねえが、そんなハッタリのチェックメイトじゃ通用しねえってことさ。
I'm so excited to see what Battler's gonna say.
レシートを軸にした推理はまずまずだとは思う。筋は悪くない。だが、俺の採点じゃせいぜい65点ってとこだ。これが答案なら、居残りで補修ってとこだぜ。
あら、じゃあレシートで封印されている扉をどうやって破ってお父様を失踪させられるというの？私の説以外に！
エヴァおばさんの説は確かに面白い。そして、その説以外に、じい様が失踪できる方法がないって言い切れるなら、最終目撃者である夏日おばさんが黒であると確かに言い切れるだろう。だが、夏日おばさんが無実で濡れ衣である可能性が残っている以上、そうだと断言することはできね
You know, I kind of feel like I'm playing Ace Attorney right now.
ならバトラ君は、夏日姉さん以外の誰にお父様を失踪させられたというの？姉さんしかありえないのよ。私のレシートがそれを証明してしまったわ。一度目に書斎に訪れた夏日姉さん、そして二度目に私と訪れるまでの間、書斎は完全に密室で密室開封後には失踪している。これで夏日姉さんが犯人じゃないというなら、どんなトリックがあるっていうの？
だから65点なんだよ、エヴァおばさん。じゃあここでチェス盤をひっくり返すぜ。
Let's flip over the chessboard.
どうやって外部からじい様を失踪させるかじゃない。どうやって内部からじい様が失踪するかって考えるんだ。扉にはレシートが挟まれていたから使用されていない。窓も出ることはできても外側からは施錠できず、しかもエヴァおばさんは書斎を訪れた時に窓の施錠を確認している。だから窓も使用されていない。その時点では確かに書斎は密室だった。これは認めるしかない。だがしかし、書斎は永遠に密室だったわけじゃない。レシートの封印さえ解かれれば扉は使用可能になり脱出可能になる。つまり夏日おばさんがどうやってじい様を失踪させたかじゃない。どうやってじい様は書斎を脱出したのかって考えるんだよ。じい様の書斎はただの書斎じゃねえんだよな。源氏さんの話じゃ、トイレからキッチン、ベッドルームまであるちょいとした家並みじゃねえか。例えばベッドの下にでも潜って隠れたら、おばさんたちは部屋からいなくなったと思い込めるぜ。エヴァおばさんもそこまで調べてきたわけじゃねえだろ。そしておばさんたちは失踪したと思い階下へ戻る。この時レシートはもうない。つまりじい様は密室である間は部屋に隠れ続け、エヴァおばさんたちをやり過ごした後に部屋から脱出することでこの密室を破ることができる。
何よそれ。 どうしてお父様がそんな妙なことをして部屋を抜け出さなきゃならないの？口頭無形にも程があるわよ。
ああ、口頭無形かもな。だがそれでも夏日おばさんが濡れ衣かもしれない可能性は示してる。
Yeah, that means Eva's argument doesn't hold much water because Kinzo could have just tricked them. And Kinzo being Kinzo, I think Battler's onto something here.
エヴァおばさんのレシートは完璧じゃねえ。チェスで言えばチェックくらいにはなったろ。だがチェックメイトじゃねえ。そして俺が最高に気に入らねえのは、それを夏日おばさんに釈明しろと迫って、それができなきゃ黒だって断定しようとしたエヴァおばさんのその論法さ。それがまかり通るってんだな、この後ろ宮バトラ。ここでもう一回チェス盤をひっくり返させてもらおうじゃねえか。エヴァおばさん、あんたの論法によるならよ、あんたと秀吉おじさんが昨日親父たち6人を殺害してからのこのことゲストハウスに帰ったんじゃないってことをこの場で釈明してもらわなくちゃならねえぜ。夏日おばさんに釈明を強いたんだ。あんたにはもちろん自身の潔白を釈明できるんだろうな。
I'm very happy with this development. Go Battler, go! Maybe because I'm a bit biased towards Natsuhi and I don't like Eva that much right now, that I want to see this play out.
じいさまの遺産が全部転がり込むエヴァおばさんよ。
そうだぜ。エヴァおばさんだって十分怪しいじゃねえかよ。母さんがじいさまの最終目撃者だから怪しいって言うなら、エヴァおばさんだって父さんたちの最終目撃者じゃないか。バトラの言う通りだぜ。自分たちは殺してないってことを証明してみせろよ。
僕もお母さんの推理は少し勇み足だと思うな。レシートの件は確かに重要なヒントだと思う。でもそれはバトラ君の言う通り、夏日おばさんが何がしかの犯人であることを断定できるものじゃない。
Eva must really hate her own son for agreeing with them right now.
僕たちは等しく全員が容疑者なんだ。夏日おばさんだけが責められる道理はない。
誇り高きお父様が床に這いつくばってベッドの下に？そんなざれ言で説明がつくと思って？
それならエヴァおばさんが先に説明しろよ。6人を誰がどうやって殺して、そして自分が関わっていないという証拠を示してみろってんだ。
Oh no. Oh, I hope she's okay.
お嬢様、お嬢様。
Jessica suddenly started coughing. At first, I thought that she was just choking after yelling too loud, but it seemed to be lasting too long for that, and she really looked like she was suffering. Jessica kept coughing and choking, down on her hands and knees.
ジェシカ、しっかり。
It's because of her weak lungs, right?
なんじゃ先生。
ジェシカさん、吸入器を早く。私が持ってきているのがあります。
Dr. Nanjo pulled out a bronchodilator inhaler from his own bag, which was lying on a sofa, and handed it to Kennen-kun. Come to think of it, 6 years ago, didn't Jessica sometimes break into a violent coughing and have to use that? But 6 years ago, I never saw Jessica look like she was in this much pain.
兄貴、ジェシカってこんなに喘息ひどかったっけ？
ここ数年でだいぶ悪くなったんだよ。大丈夫な時はいいんだけどね。突然発作が来ると咳が止まらなくなるんだよ。
お嬢様、お薬です。さあ。
taking the inhaler from Kanan-kun, Jessica used it with a practiced hand. For a while, it looked like her throat was still feeling itchy, but it gradually settled down.
大丈夫かよ、ジェシカ。びっくりしたぜ。
大したことねえよ。心配すんじゃねえぞ。
Beads of sweat covered Jessica's whole body, and she couldn't hide her rough breathing, but it looked like her sudden attack had calmed down for now. This disturbance had left the room's hostile atmosphere in an awkward, unsettled state. But that was fine. There was absolutely no need to be driving up everyone's suspicions of each other. When you think about it, even probing at each other's alibis and searching for the killer were probably completely unnecessary. After all, we're just powerless, ordinary people. And when the police come tomorrow, they'll definitely employ cutting-edge techniques and investigate the case thoroughly. Solve all of the riddles and arrest the killer.
確かにバトラ君の言う通りかしら。夏日姉さんが疑わしいように、私たちも疑わしさを拭えていない。
Oh, I don't like where this is going.
それを今議論し合うのは確かに不毛ね。明日、警察に全てを任せれば済むだけの話よ。でも、バトラ君だって知りたいんじゃないの？犯人を。大切な人を失った痛みを思い知らせてやるために、1秒でも早く知りたいんじゃない？
What does she feel like? What? I feel like she's trying to instigate something here.
それは否定しないです。これだけの上等を決めてくれやがった野郎を。でも、だからといって、18人の中の誰かを疑いたくはない。さっきはああ言ったが、俺はエヴァおばさんだって疑いたくない。俺にとってのエヴァおばさんは、ちゃめっ気があって、いつも楽しくさせてくれる最高のおばさんだ。そんなおばさんと、こんな罵り合いはしたくねえ。ここにいる誰だって、そんなことは望んでねえはずさ。だろ、みんな。
バトラ君に同じ、意味のない罵り合いだね。多分、これだけの人数が朝から一ところにずっと集まってるから。
でしょうな。無理もないことです。言ってできるものではありませんが、なるべく皆さんリラックスしましょう。
エヴァ、わしらも頭を冷やすべきとちゃうか。レシートの件は確かにお父さんの失踪を探る上で重要な手がかりになると思うで。警察が来たら話すといいやろ。
そうね。そう。レシートの一件で、つい鬼の首を取ったような気持ちになっちゃったのね。確かに夏日姉さんだけを疑うのはフェアじゃないわ。私たちだって等しく疑わしい。でもね、バトラ君。レシートの話だけは本当よ。これ、忘れないでね。そしてこれがどういう意味を持つか、もう一度よく考えてみてね。
Oh God, this is scary. Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi stood up. It looked like they planned on leaving the parlor.
結局私たちはこんな推理ごっこしても意味はないのよ。だってどうせ警察が全て明かしてくれるんですもの。
That's right. Even if we don't play this detective game, when a typhoon passes, and those lively seagulls return to the harbor, everything will settle itself. Yes. If you think about it, this kind of crime is completely trivial. No, it's not. It will definitely be resolved. Even if we do nothing. When the seagulls cry. Why?
これ以上、夏日姉さんも私の顔を見ていたくはないでしょ。私も同じよ。確か姉さんは昨日、 ゲストハウスに帰らなくて済むようにって客室を用意してくれたのよね。あそこはバスもトイレもあるし、鍵もチェーンもかかる。横になれるベッドもあるし、主人もマリアちゃんとチャンネル争いをせずにテレビを見ることができるわ。
お好きになさるといいでしょう。でもくれぐれも用心を。
ありがとう姉さん。そして余計なお世話よ。姉さんはみんなの監視をよろしくね。犯人はこの中に必ずいるんだから。そして姉さんも自分が監視をされていることをお忘れなく。
捨て台詞はそれで十分ですか？
十分よ。じゃあね、夏日姉さん。源氏さん、夕食になったら呼んでね。それまでチェーンをかけて閉じこもってるわ。
源氏、カノ、お二人を客室までお送りを。
結構よ。送り狼なんて嫌だもの。むしろ私たちが部屋に行くまで誰もこの部屋を出ないでくれる方が安心よ。
She's this confident that the killer is among them. But, guys, I had like this image in my head of them, of a bloody room with those two people inside. I mean, Eva and Hideyoshi. I hope that's not the case, but that's kind of what I'm feeling right now.
ジョージ行くわよ。
僕はここでみんなといるよ。
ジョージ、この部屋に犯人がいるのよ。そんなところにいるつもり？
この部屋を出るということは親族の誰かを疑うのと同じことだよ。僕はあんな恐ろしいことができる人間が親族にいるなんて信じない。
ジョージ、あなたからも言ってやってよ。
ジョージももう一人前の男や。そのジョージの仁義がこの部屋から出えへん言わせるなら、それも勝手やろ。好きにさせたれ。
父さん。
Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi left. The only voice that called after them was the sound of the rain. The parlor was being buried beneath the savage atmosphere. When I looked at the clock, I was surprised to find that it was already evening. Had we really spent that much time worrying, talking, fighting about such needless things? Feeling bored, I started clawing at my head when Maria and I made eye contact. Since I had thought she was completely immersed in the TV, I was a little surprised.
今なら信じるぜ。手紙も殺人も全てベアトリーチェの仕業だ。いや、むしろ頼むからそうだと名乗り出てほしいぜ。19人目の仕業ってことにさせてくれ。じゃなきゃ俺たち18人はいつまでも互いを疑い合わなくちゃならねえ。これなら19人目の存在を信じる方がマシさ。扉も窓も開けずにじいさまを外へ連れ出すなんて。ベアトリーチェならお茶の子さいさいなんだろう。
Oh no. Maria, after taking a single short breath, hung her head and then raised her face again. I'm scared to press the button.
そうだよ。魔女の前に扉の鍵なんて何の役にも立たないんだよ。ベアトリーチェは72柱のすべてに精通する。33位のガープは望む相手を望む場所へ瞬時に運ぶ力を与えるし、彼女にとってどのような密室に閉じこもった人間だろうと連れ出すことは難しいことでも何でもないんだよ。
魔女はすげえな。頼むから、もしまだ事件を起こす気なら絶対に人間には無理なことをして俺に19人目を、いや魔女の存在を信じさせてくれよ。
いいよ。 あったら伝えておくよ。
Damn it. I don't even understand my own thoughts anymore. When I'm led to believe in a 19th person, I deny it. When I'm led to believe that there are only 18 people, I deny that too. Even though I wish that there were more than just the 18 people here, I can't accept the existence of that 19th person. In short, even though there are more than 18 people, there are less than 19. The number of people in this mansion is between 19 and 18. So the number of people can't be represented by an integer. However, it's impossible for there to be anything after the decimal point. You shouldn't be able to represent the number of people with anything but an integer. And yet, x is between 19 and 18. Why does a fraction less than 1 play into this? It's no wonder. That 19th person is an invisible being that can't be seen. That's why, in the integer representation, that must be used to describe numbers of people. She can't be seen. That which cannot be seen. Because Beatrice has no body. Therefore, she is invisible. Is there a 19th person or not? Does the witch exist or not? This is getting ominous. X is between 19 and 18. The witch exists somewhere in that X. Oh god. I feel like I should expect that every time now, but I'm still shocked every time, yeah. The two who are close. It's 7 o'clock on the day of the murder, and I guess we are moving to the second part, the second line. The uncomfortable atmosphere continued even after those two left. It was thick with the idea that thinking about who the killer was would be the same as deciding who to doubt. It had begun to feel like discussion of the incidents was itself taboo. So no one was mentioning it, at least out loud. However, those thoughts were what filled our minds. All that we couldn't say aloud made our heads feel like they were going to explode. So, at least on the outside, the parlor had once again regained its calm mood, though everything was still left unsettled.
少しだけ雨足が弱まった気がするね。
まだいっぱい降ってるよ。
仮に止んだって、この島には船がねえんだしな。船が明日すぐに来てくれりゃいいんだがよ。洋館バカンさんもうお腹いっぱいだぜ。
母さん、明日船はいつ来るのかな。
本来なら帰りの船は今日の3時に来てくれることになっていました。先方も台風が過ぎてから出直すと電話をしてくれたでしょうが、あいにく電話は普通ですから。でも向こうも子供の使いではありません。客人の方々の送迎目的だと教えてありますから。おそらく明日の朝一番で、多分9時頃に来てくれるでしょう。
It was completely black outside. When I looked at the clock, I realized that it was just past 7. I was starting to get hungry. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was cooking enthusiastically. She had laid out a variety of dishes, and while they didn't match the level of Goda's artful cooking, they were still quite gorgeous. It was an act of kindness from Kumasawa, trying to use food to enliven everyone's low spirits. Kumasawa wasn't nearly as talented as a professional cook like Goda, but she was far from unskilled. On the contrary, since she had been brought up in a fishing village, the simple food she created was sometimes very highly valued. Kennen arranged the food Kumasawa had finished creating on plates under her direction. Kanon also helped in the kitchen sometimes, but since he was rarely placed in that role, he was slightly awkward even though he tried his best. Self-conscious about the fact that he couldn't skillfully arrange the food, Kanon's expression darkened slightly. But Kumasawa smiled to say everything was fine.
きれいに盛り付けられてますよ。カノン君もお上手ですよ。
シャノン姉さんだったらもっときれいに。
I really appreciate Kumasawa because she knows how to cheer people up just like Battler does, which also helps me after seeing something not very happy. Kanon stopped arranging the food for a bit and hung his head. Shannon was the one who always assisted Kumasawa in her cooking. Tonight, Kanon was doing it instead. And as he remembered Shannon's face and her brutal end, he grimaced. Genji spoke kindly to Kanon as he advanced upon. Nanjo had escaped from the parlor once the mood had become sour, and Genji had become his opponent in a game of chess upon Nanjo's request.
はい、今は忘れます。
それがいいだろう。
Genji purposefully faced away from Kanon as he spoke. He did so because he understood that it might make things tougher on Kanon if he noticed that someone was looking at his eyes. Nanjo also understood that and held back any thoughtless words.
金蔵さんもどこへ行かれたんでしょうな。ご無事だといいのですが。わかりません。ただ、すべては親方様が望まれ、仕組まれたことのように思っています。それを邪推することは、親方様にお仕えする家具には過ぎたことです。源氏さんは怖くないのですか。私には今夜まだ何か良くないことが起こるような気がして。怖いことなどない。私はただ後ろ宮家にお仕えするだけですので。
Nanjo sighed through his nose and made a carefully considered move. Nanjo was very slightly dubious. Could Genji possibly think that he would be left out of this? He couldn't begin to imagine what was happening inside this mansion. But he definitely couldn't deny the possibility that it was something of Kinzo's design. If you liken this island chess, Kinzo had opened the game, and as a result, 6 pieces had fallen. Could it be that Genji was calm because he believed that he alone was outside the chessboard and safe? Nanjo thought about it. Wasn't everyone just a piece on this chessboard, lined up equally without any exceptions? Wasn't even Genji, who had gained more of Kinzo's trust than anyone? No, wasn't Namjo himself, although proud of his position as Kinzo's only close friend? Just another one of these pieces laid out on a chessboard.
源氏さん、私は今夜が本当に怖いのです。無事に明日の朝を迎えられることを心より願っています。
The guest room that Eva and Hideyoshi had moved into was used to house guests before the guest house had been constructed. So until a few years ago, they had stayed in this room every family conference and were very familiar with it. This room, just like a room at a hotel, had a bedroom and a bathroom. So even though they were still shut in, it was far more comfortable than the parlor.
やっぱり家族だけだとリラックスできるな。他のみんなも客室にこもって鍵をかけてりゃええんや。
I guess that's how little faith they have in their own family members.
夏日姉さんが客間を出るなって威張り散らしてるんだもん。誰も口答えなんてできないでしょ。あの人、ずーっと冷や飯を食ってきたから、兄さんが死んでやっと天下が来たって張り切ってんのよ。
And whose fault is it, Eva?
まったく、ずうずうしいったらあるしな。
まあ、そう言うな。夏希さんもあれで結構頑張っとるんやで。お前もそう突っかからんでもええやないか。さっきのレシートの件も、あそこまでは言い過ぎやで。
だってあそこで言わなかったら、もう言うタイミングがないんだもん。
Eva, sulking cutely, sat down beside Hideyoshi, who was lying on the bed watching TV.
でも、こうして二人きりになるのはずいぶん久しぶりよね。
そうやな。思えば、わしもお前も老けたもんや。ジョージが生まれてから何もかもがあっという間や。
本当にあっという間よ。子供を作るの焦りすぎたかしら。
Eva's eyes looked like they were staring off into the distance. Yes, she had thought it a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Her older brother Kraus had been unable to have a child for quite some time. 6 years had passed after his marriage to Natsuhi without any signs of pregnancy, which didn't please Kinzo at all. As for Eva herself, she would be removed from the Ushinomiya family register anyway once she got married, so whether a successor to the head was born or not, it was all the same to her. So she had thought. But then one day, she had a heavenly revelation. Or maybe it was the whisperings of the devil that she had heard in her greed. Perhaps she could remain in the Ushinomiya register if she gave birth to a successor first. If things went well, perhaps she could even inherit the Ushinomiya family herself. When she proposed this to Hideyoshi, he approved of it instantly. This had not been because Hideyoshi also had greedy thoughts. For Hideyoshi, who had no close relatives, it was a chance for him to feel once more that long-forgotten thing called family. Aww. So he agreed without hesitation not to fuss over which family name they were to keep upon getting married, and assented to having his name entered into the Ushinomiya family register. It wasn't easy to persuade Kinzo, but as his daughter, Eva knew Kinzo's personality well. So she chose a time when Kinzo was most dissatisfied with Natsuhi, and expertly managed to make him accept Hideyoshi as a son-in-law. Looking at Hideyoshi, who had achieved success after starting from nothing, Kinzo might have seen a little bit of himself. He quickly grew to like Hideyoshi and permitted him to transfer into the Ushinomiya register. George would eventually become the successor to the Ushinomiya family. They have raised him strictly with that purpose in mind. George had been worth their while and had grown into a fabulous young man who wouldn't disappoint no matter where he went. That was why she couldn't stand that he was in love with a servant like Shannon. I knew it. So, when she had learned that Shannon had died and the engagement had been invalidated, while part of her had been shocked at a gruesome crime, another part of her had been relieved that her precious George wouldn't be stolen by some servant girl. Wouldn't this kind of also show that Eva was not the one who committed the crimes?
私、クラウス兄さんのことが昔から嫌いだったわ。偉そうで威張ってて。自分がやがては当主になるのだと自慢してて。だから、それに一矢報いてやりたかった。でも、それは子供の頃の感情なのよ。でもその感情は、結局、自分の人生のほとんどを支配した。それだけならまだいい。その感情は、あなたやジョージまで巻き込んで振り回してしまった。
エヴァ、備え自分を責めるな。
Hideyoshi sat up and put his arm around Eva. She could feel a warm understanding from him.
わしはな、自分の人生はもうとっくに折り返しに入っとる。でもな、今日までの生活を 後悔したことは一度もないで。一度もや。エヴァと一緒で他の男どもじゃ味わえん楽しい人生になったと思っとる。戦争で身寄りを失ったわしにもう一度家族のぬくもりを教えてくれた。だから後ろ宮の家には感謝しとるし、わしの唯一の家だと思っとる。わしとお前が歩んできた人生にな。今日までほんまに楽しい人生やったで。
I want to say something. And it's kind of wild. But my mind is racing right now. Because I can see Natsuhi is full of love for Ushiromiya, the Ushiromiya family, and Hideyoshi also loves the Ushiromiya family. Would it be wild to think that Hideyoshi would kill the both of them tonight? That's my theory.
ありがとう、あなた。
Eva hung her head, burying her face into Hideyoshi's chest. Probably no one in the parlor could even imagine that this side of Eva existed.
感謝するのはわしや。今日までお前と一緒にいて後悔した日なんてあらへん。
私もよ。あなたと一緒になれて。
ジョージももう立派な大人や。わしが見張ってなくてもしっかり仕事ができる一人前や。で、正月あたりをのんびりモルジブあたりで過ごさんか。わしら二人水いらずや。
いやよ。毎年年賀状の返礼で寝る暇もないとか言ってるじゃない。
次の正月だけはなしや。年賀状は見ん。黙って下のお年玉くじだけチェックするんや。今年はカラーテレビくらい当てたいで。
やだ。モルジブでお年玉くじのチェックなんてしたくない。
じゃあそいつもなしや。水いらずのんびりでジョージが生まれる直前の新婚時代の続きをちょいとしてみんか。
うん、それならいいわね。
モルジブはええとこらしいで。なんもない島に美しいサンゴ礁と水上コテージが並んでてな。
新婚時代の続きっていつからなの？
仕事納めしたらすぐや。旅行店に聞いてみんとわからんが、多分大晦日前には。
いや、今すぐがいい。
Peevishly, or maybe coquettishly, Eva pled for his lips. The only sounds that filled the room were the distant voice of the announcer on the news, which Hideyoshi had left on, and the obnoxious pounding of the rain against the window. Oh god. The sound scared me. There was a knock on the door and Genji-san entered.
奥様、お夕食の準備が整いました。お食事はまたこちらでよろしいですか？
ええ、ここへ運ばせなさい。南條先生はまだ厨房にいるのですか？
はい。次の一手を熟考したいとおっしゃっております。ご安心を。他の使用人たちとご一緒です。
源氏さんはじい様の相手ができるくらいチェスが強いもんな。南條先生よりも強いらしいぜ。
そうなんだ。昔相手をしてもらったことがあるけど、あれは勝たせてくれたのかな。
マリア、もうすぐ飯だそうだぜ。しかしよく一日中テレビを見ていて飽きねえな。
うん、いつもテレビいっぱい見てるから平気。
マリアちゃんはテレビっ子なんだね。
It's like, this generation's iPad kid.
食事だから机の上を片付けないとダメだぜ。
It was still cluttered with the aftermath of the drawing contest we had all been having, using several pages torn out of Maria's notebook. Jessica began cleaning that up quickly. Still, everyone here sure can draw. Really shocking.
源氏、エヴァさんたちにもせめて食事くらい一緒にしないかとお声をかけなさい。
I'm getting a bad feeling.
どうせ断るでしょうが。
かしこまりました。
お父様の次はエヴァさんですか。つくづく後宮家の食卓には全員が揃いませんね。
Natsuhi felt her headache start throbbing again and lightly held her temples. Oh, I gotta prepare myself. The distance from the kitchen to the parlor wasn't that large, so Genji had gone there and back by himself, but the guest room was a little farther away. Natsuhi had warned him not to be alone without good reason. And just now, Nanjo had also admonished him, saying that it would be better if he held a little more concern for his safety. Genji took Kanon with him, and the two of them went to visit Eva and Hideyoshi in their guest room. Oh god, I'm scared. Genji knocked on the door.
エヴァ様、秀吉様、お夕食の準備が整いました。
He waited a short while for them to come out, but there was no response.
源氏様、これは。
It's gonna be the symbol, isn't it? Kanon pointed under the door. Oh, okay. A Western-style envelope had been inserted under it. Normally, when something was inserted this way, it would be interpreted as a message from someone outside to someone in the room. So, since this might be a private note meant for Eva and Hideyoshi, it was not something that Kanon and Genji were supposed to take interest in. But this Western-style envelope was Kinzo's envelope, the same as the one Maria had taken out last night and surprised everyone with. Ooh.
間違いない。親方様の封筒。
あるいは。
Although it had been Kinzo's envelope, the author of the letter Maria had read aloud last night had not been Kinzo. Oh god. Genji continued knocking a little harder and called out in a loud voice.
エヴァ様、エヴァ様、源氏でございます。いらっしゃいますか。お返事をお願いいたします。エヴァ様。
But there was no response from inside. Sometimes, when the servants went to call some guests for a meal, the guests would be sleeping so deeply that they wouldn't wake up. In times like that, the servants would stick a letter in the door to show that they had called by and then leave the guest be. However, despite that, Genji beat even harder on the door and called out Eva's name. So he's worried too. But there was no answer. Oh. Kenneth stuck his ear up to the door and, holding his breath, listened for any sounds coming from the inside.
テレビの音らしきものが。でも気配が感じられません。お部屋は空っぽかも。
Genji took out a handkerchief and, careful not to touch it with his bare hands, gently pulled out the envelope which had been stuck under the door. It had been sealed with deep red sealing wax. Without a doubt, the mark on that sealing wax had come from the Umineko family head's ring.
エヴァ様、エヴァ様、どうかお返事を。もうお部屋にはいらっしゃいませんか。
Even so, there was still no answer. There was a chance that the two of them were aimlessly walking around the mansion. This was the home Eva had grown up in. There was plenty of reason to think that she had gone out on a casual stroll. Genji groped around in his pocket and pulled out a bundle of keys, including the one that would open the guest room. I've never seen Genji so worked up. Like back in the kitchen, he was so calm about it, but now that Eva is potentially gonna go missing, Genji is so anxious.
源氏様。
Kanon also understood what this meant. They would sometimes unlock a guest door so they could go in and do things like make the beds, but only after they had made sure the guest was out. To unlock the door for a separate reason, and especially to do so when there was a chance the guests were still in there and without their permission, was an action unbecoming of a servant. However, Genji had decided. If the only problem had been that his knock hadn't received a reply, he wouldn't have gone this far. But the envelope under the door was doubtlessly Kinzo's. Or rather, one of the Western-style envelopes of the Ushinomiya family hid. And after last night, the sender of this envelope could be someone other than Kinzo. If this letter had been sent by someone other than Kinzo...
エヴァ様、申し訳ございません。お部屋を失礼させていただきます。
After giving that final notice, Genji stuck one of the keys from the bundle into the keyhole. Oh... There was a sound of the door unlocking. And then, he slowly turned the knob and slowly started opening the door. Light seeped through the crack of the door. Were they in the room? Or had they forgotten to turn out the lights? Clank. It was the sound of the door chain being pulled tight. The chain had been secured. The chain couldn't be secured from the outside. That meant that they were in the room now. The sound of voices on the TV seeped out of the room. The lights, the chain, and the TV. What's happening? All of these things made it clear that they were in the room. But there was no sign of them. Genji called to Eva once again through the crack of the door. But there was no answer. Oh god.
源氏様、いかがしますか?
As part of their jobs, their servants were able to unlock almost any lock in the mansion. But they had no way to open a door with a chain. The only way to get by the chain was to cut it. That was certainly not permitted as part of a servant's usual work. A creepy chill was already rushing up their backs. Kennen held his breath again and tried to sense someone through the door, but even so, he was not able to sense anyone.
私は奥様をお呼びしてくる。カノンのチェーンの切断を。
Wait, but they'll be separated.
はい。
As Kennen rushed away hurriedly to get a cutting tool, he was called back by Genji.
待てカノン。厨房に戻り、熊沢と行動するように。断じて一人で行動してはならんぞ。
はい。かしこまりました。
It looked like Kennen was wondering why he had to do something so troublesome in the middle of this urgent situation. But Genji had said it out of wariness. He didn't care what happened to himself. But in the worst case scenario, he didn't want anything to happen to Kennen. Oh man. In the kitchen was Kumasawa, who was piling food on the serving cart. And Nanjo, who seemed to have thought of a move that would turn the tables on Genji, and had been awaiting his return, wanting to show him. But he immediately realized that something was wrong with Genji's demeanor.
おや、どうしましたか、源氏さん。南條先生、申し訳ありませんが、この勝負は一度中断させてください。カノンはチェーンを頼む。熊沢、食事の配膳は一時中断し、カノン、私は奥様のところへ行く。南條先生もご一緒に。何かあったんですか?
Genji took Nanjo, who still didn't know what was going on, and quickly left the kitchen.
熊沢さん、申し訳ありませんが、僕と一緒に来てください。
何があったんですか、カノンさん。
Unable to take in the situation, Kumasawa said almost exactly the same thing as Nanjo and chased after Kennen, who had flown out into the hallway. Accompanied by Kumasawa, Kennen went into the storehouse. And from amongst the tools packed in the toolboxes and hanging on the walls, he looked for a tool that could be used to cut a chain.
何を探してるんですか?
Is this the storehouse in the garden?
私も手伝いますよ。
ドアチェーンを切断するんです。大きめの番線カッターは
ドアチェーンをどうしてそんなことをするんですか？
エヴァ様たちのお部屋にチェーンが中にいらっしゃるはずなのに、お声をかけても返事がないんです。
It took Kumasawa some time to figure out how cutting the chain and Eva and Hideyoshi not answering were connected, but she did realize that this was an urgent situation.
これなら多分
Kenan took down a very large bolt cutter that had been hanging on the wall. It was called a cutter, but maybe it would be easier to understand if described as having the shape of a large pair of pliers. He recalled being warned that it was a dangerous tool that could easily cut through one of your fingers. Kenan took that and rushed up the stairs. He knew it instinctively. He should fight for every minute, every second to open it quickly. Or maybe already.
待ってください、カノンさん。
早く
Kumasawa eventually caught up with him, gasping for breath with both hands on her knees. When Kenan changed his grip on the bolt cutter and looked up at the door, he let out an ah, struck speechless. Oh, I'm scared. What's happening? Oh my.
何ですかこれは。
Is this the room? Kumasawa screamed weakly, her face pallid. That was no surprise, because right there, on the door, just like the magic circle that had been drawn on the shutter of the Rose Garden storehouse, there was another eerie shape drawn with paint that looked like blood. However, it was dubious whether this one could be called a magic circle, because, unlike what most people would think of as a magic circle, it wasn't a circle with shapes drawn inside, but a slightly more geometrical shape. However, the strange non-alphabetical characters written in the gaps of the figure were without a doubt the same as the magic circle on a shutter. But the thing that had Kenan struck speechless was not how eerie the magic circle was. Only moments ago, this hadn't been here. Oh, I'm scared. He had returned to the kitchen for a short while. He had then gone to the storehouse to grab a tool and hid it right back. Put those two together and it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. How could someone add something this creepy during that period of time? And as though it had just been drawn. Almost like the door itself was bleeding, several unsettling vertical red lines slowly dripped down, getting longer and longer. Kumasawa's knees gave way and she sank down on the spot. If Kumasawa hadn't done this first, then Kenan surely would have wanted to.
ベアトリーチェ様
Oh.
ベアトリーチェ様の仕業ですよ。恐ろしや恐ろしや。
Oh. Kenan gulped, then readied the bolt cutter and approached the door. So this symbol is on the door on the outside? He didn't want to get close to this disturbing magic circle, and he really didn't want to touch the steadily dripping substance that looked like blood. But if he didn't get close, he couldn't cut the chain. Fighting this cold feeling, he gulped again, and after gathering his courage, went even closer, putting the bolt cutter up against the chain. He then pressed with all of his strength and cut through the chain far more easily than he had imagined. The cut chain fell into 2 separate parts, which continued to clang as they swayed back and forth.
カノンさん、足元に封筒が。
I really wish Genji and the rest would come soon.
しかもこれは親方様のもの。
It looked like Kumasawa had also noticed the Western-style envelope at the bottom of the door, and that the sealing wax had been sealed with the head's ring. Kenan was lost for just a second over whether he should open a letter first or check inside the room. But he decided on prioritizing his original purpose. Kenan pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket. This was so he wouldn't leave fingerprints on the door. If his worst fears had been realized, the police would want to investigate this room too. He slowly pushed the door open. He was able to hear the sound of the television that had been seeping out slightly more clearly now.
エヴァ様。
Oh no, this does not look good. Eva was face up on the bed. On the bed with her shoes still on? Kumasawa, who had fearfully entered after Kennen and who was hiding behind his back, screamed a short "He" again when she saw Eva like that. Please don't show Eva's face. Eva's shoes had been the first part of her that Kennen had seen, so the incongruity of wearing shoes in bed was the first thing that had entered his mind. But after he shifted his line of sight towards Eva's head, Kennen couldn't help but let out a short scream like Kumasawa. Right in the middle of Eva's forehead, something was set there? Growing there? No. Right in the center of her forehead, an old-fashioned knife or some weapon like that was stuck right in. Oh. No. From the base where it was stuck in, blood dripped down, staining the sheets on the other side bright red. Kumasawa's knees gave way once more, and she sank down onto the floor. Her mouth kept flapping open and closed, but she couldn't even scream. Eva, with some kind of weapon sticking out of her forehead, was dead. Both eyes were open wide, and the image of the person who killed her must have been burned into them. But the mouth with which to speak that truth had already been eternally sealed. Even though that forehead was the last place they wanted to look, they couldn't tear their eyes from it. Right there, the weapon was stuck into Eva's forehead, standing almost perfectly upright. And on the handle was a design so complicated you could never expect to see it on an ordinary weapon. That thing could be summed up with the word occult. It was a vulgar object with a design that might have been of some demon.
秀吉様は秀吉様
Eva was on top of her bed, but the other bed was empty. Where was Hideyoshi? After taking a backwards glance at Kumasawa, still on her knees and stupefied, he checked the bathroom just in case. At the moment he opened the door, he was greeted by the steam and the sound of the shower. Oh, the bathroom was of the same familiar style as most hotel bathrooms, containing both a bath and a toilet. When taking a shower, a waterproof curtain was used to keep water from flying out. Oh, no, what is this? That waterproof curtain was half open. Oh, that's Hideyoshi! And lying tumbled down in the bathtub was Hideyoshi, completely naked, both eyes still open. And those eyes were pointing right at Kennen. Just like Eva, a weapon with a demonic design was stuck into his forehead. Since his head had been under the hot water of the shower this whole time, his face wasn't half covered and filthy with blood like Eva's had been. But the sight of him dead while still taking a shower was tragic enough. Just then, Natsuhi's voice rang through the hall. She was probably coming with Genji.
またしてもこのような落書きが。この手紙は中には何と。
いえ、まだ読んでおりません。
うかつに触らん方がいいですな。犯人の指紋が残っとるかもしれん。警察に渡した方がいい。
わざわざ手紙を残すくらいです。どうせ指紋など残っていません。
Staying with this finality, Natsuhi picked up the envelope. And before checking its contents, she entered the room herself, where she found Eva dead.
エヴァさん奥様こちらには秀吉様も
これはむごいですな。
カワシャワーを止めてあげなさい。気の毒にも程があります。
Kennen gripped his handkerchief and twisted the valve, turning off the shower. In the bathtub, a small bottle of body soap had fallen with its cap off. it really looked like he had been attacked right in the middle of taking a shower. A spray of blood still clung slightly to the white bathtub, and a combination of red and white made a horrible contrast.
南條先生。わかったね。死斑は出とらんな。死後硬直も始まっとらん。おそらく殺されてから1時間経ったかどうかというところだろう。しかしこのような柄の短い凶器で頭蓋骨は考えられん。
Nanjo checked their pulse and their pupils, making certain of their deaths once more. As Cannon watched this business-like treatment, he thought, couldn't you tell at a glance that they're dead without doing all that? Nanjo thought about removing the weapon, but after deciding that where possible it would be better to hand the scene over to the police without disturbing it, he left it alone. However, a close examination of the base revealed that it had no blade. Or rather, it wasn't shaped like a flat blade, but was conical. He noticed that, rather than a knife, it was more like a short-handled spear, something with a shape better suited for thrusting than slicing. Rather than a short spear, some people might call it a thick ice pick. At any rate, the original hideous purpose for which this weapon with its unsettling design was made, and exactly how that purpose was carried out, were both displayed here in such a glaring fashion that there was absolutely no need to use further words to describe it. Natsuhi, hoping to escape the repulsive steam filling the bathroom as soon as she could, covered her mouth with a handkerchief and dashed from the room. Just viewing their gruesome bodies for an instant had been enough to burn the image into her eyes. If she looked any longer, that image would surely remain in her vision for all eternity. The rising urge to vomit was exactly the same feeling she had that morning at the gardening storehouse. For a while, Natsuhi couldn't help but stand with her back facing the guest room, fighting that sickness in her stomach.
この部屋を子供たちにジョージ君に見せるわけにはいきません。至急この部屋を閉じなさい。
見せられませんとも。両親のこんなむごい姿をとてもジョージさんには。
But the recklessly approaching footsteps were obviously George's even before he came flying to the room. George and the other children had been waiting in the parlor. But when they had seen Genji call Natsuhi out and had noticed her turn pale and fly out of the room, they had felt that he might have been the bearer of bad news. And when they saw a large group of people gathered around the guest room, they were sure of it.
父さん！母さん！
なんだよこれ、また魔法陣かよ。
エヴァおばさんたちは無事なんだよな。おい、カノ君、これは何の騒ぎなんだ。
バトラ様。
Kennen didn't have anything to say. George's scream after he ran into the room told them everything they needed to know.
誰がこんなことを。殺してやる！殺してやる！
ジョージ君、しっかり。
Natsuhi touched George's shoulder with a hand, but he violently shook her off. George collapsed to the floor beside Eva and buried his face in a bed in front of his mother's face, wailing. Then he pounded on the bed with his fist, over and over again.
ジョージ兄さん、しっかり。バトラ様。
Butler had his back against the wall of the hallway and was, without restraint, covering his eyes with his right hand and weeping.
ひでえぜ。心に決めた女を婚約した次の日に失った。同じ日に親父とおふくろまで殺されるなんてよ。そんなのあんまりにもむごいじゃねえか。
course, he felt sorry for everyone who had died. But Battler felt far more sorry for those who had been left alone by the deaths of others. Everyone here now had lost someone close to them. George wasn't the only one he felt sorry for. However, George's pain was far greater than everyone else's.
バトラ
そりゃよ、人はいつか死ぬぜ。人間誰だっていつか死別の悲しみと戦わなきゃならない日が来るだろうよ。でもよ、そいつは兄貴にとってはずっと未来の話で、しかもそいつは一つずつ順番に訪れるべきもんじゃねえかよ。濃すぎるぜ。やろう少しは人の情けってもんがねえのかよ。
おう、バトラ、泣かない。
Maria tried to comfort Battler in a mechanical-sounding voice. Battler violently wiped his tears.
くそ、もう流さないぜ。悔し涙も悲しみの涙ももう二度と流さねえぜ。全然ダメだ。俺たちは魔女様に爪を食らってるわけだ。主勢一方ってわけだ。そりゃダメだぜ。全然ダメだ。チェス盤がひっくり返っちまうぜ。野郎は俺たち羊が明日まで逃げる手段もなく怯えてるだけだろうと思ってるだろうよ。だからひっくり返すぜ。明日までこの島から逃げられねえのは野郎も同じだ。しょんべんちびりそうになりながら逃げ隠れするのは俺たちじゃねえ。野郎の方だ。暴いてやるぜ。必ずな。明日までに。いや、明日なんか待たねえ。今夜だ。今夜中にその胸ぐらを掴み上げてやる。
Boiler room. No
とにか
time.
くこの部屋は警察が来るまでこのままにして施錠します。
Alright, we're gonna end here for today. Lots of things happen. I expected Eva and Hideyoshi to be killed, but certainly not like this. If anything, I would have expected them to be killed in the same way that the other 6 were sacrificed, with the same symbol, but now a new symbol appeared, looking even more disturbing than the previous one. And the method of killing was different as well, with the spear, short-handled spear, through the forehead. Very disturbing, very gruesome. And I can't help but wonder why target George. Am I making sense? Because it feels like, so far, the murders, yes, has affected everyone, but probably, like Battler said, hit George more than the others. I'm still thinking about approaching this through love. And my line of reasoning has led me to Natsuhi and Hideyoshi as possible culprits. I would like to say that it's not just one person working on it, but possibly multiple people working, and probably not even together. Do you know what I mean? That Hideyoshi had his own part to play, Natsuhi had her own role that she needed to fulfill, and they didn't know each other's role. That's just kind of where I'm leaning towards, but of course I can be wrong as well. Hello everyone, I'm recording this after the fact, so pardon me, because I forgot to open the character menu. And we do see that it has updated with Eva's and Hideyoshi's. And in both cases it says, that no way a human could have killed them. And that laugh at the end of Hideyoshi's one is, obviously a Maria laugh. But, you know, this just reminded me of what Battler said before, which is that he hopes that the next death, I think at least that's what he said, would be one that is committed in a way that cannot be explained by a human. Which, yeah, like when you see Hideyoshi's and Eva's crime scene, you can't really explain it in a way that a person on the outside could have done it, which is why I suspected Hideyoshi, or at least one of them in the room, committed the crime. So, yes, I'm saying it's possibly an inside job. But initially, I had my eyes set on Hideyoshi, but I forgot to address this, which is that Eva was on the bed with her shoes on. And the last time we saw them, both Hideyoshi and Eva were, you know, like cuddling on the bed. So there's no way she would be wearing her shoes. This brings up my point that what if Eva was walking around, she then killed Hideyoshi in his defenseless state, then killed herself, but forgot to take off her shoes to make it look like she didn't kill herself. Anyway, that's just a wild theory, but it's fun even though it might be wrong. But I like it. That right now, maybe Eva killed them both, even though logically it doesn't really make much sense. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And bye!